It's 4 o'clock on a Tuesday. You know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. Woohoo! Yeah, baby, here we go. Start of a new week. Well, at least for those of us in the U.S. And thank you, fake band. Thank you, fake audience. Put that band away for a moment. Let's say hello to the folks in the chat room. Before I do say hello to everybody, I want to let you know that today at the top of the show, we're going to talk about instrumentals versus instrumental cues one more time. I think everybody could use a little refresher course on that. Let's see. Let's say hello to everybody. We've got Ian Shortall. We've got Ian Shortall, Martin Gravel, Bob Gunnerfeld, Jesse J. Peck, Nancy Colell, Darren Fletcher, John Hope. Hello, John Hope. That looks like I've never seen you in the room before. Hello, welcome. Ilraso Emil, Andre Stepanian, Peter Rahill, Pete Mason, Alex Dillon, John Pearson. Oh, I've got a surprise for you today, Pearson. Let's see. Songs from a Headband. Playing golf with your dad and you're watching this show? Man, we need to talk. I wish I was playing golf with your dad and you were doing this show. Hello, Ewart, Alan McCool, Dean Turner, Stickman 111. Hello. Nice to see you in the chat room. Lucian Lewis. Oh, it's a good thing, JP. I'll show you in a couple of minutes. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like everybody's here. Hope you guys all had a great holiday weekend. It was so hot here on Sunday. We had to drive to Simi Valley, which is about a half-hour drive from where we live, and it was 118 degrees. That's what my car said on the freeway. We got home that night, saw that it got up to 121 degrees in Woodland Hills, which is not that far from here, like a, 15-minute drive from where we broadcast the show, and about a 5-minute drive from Taxi World headquarters, and 121 degrees in Woodland Hills. Maybe there's something to that global warming, although, well, that's a whole other discussion. I don't want to get in there. 52 people, or 52 degrees. I thought you meant 52 people in the chat room. There's a Waves ad running already? Wow. It is like Africa hot. Let's see. Fires are terrible. Seeing on the news. You know, honestly, I know that they're all over the place and they are terrible. And I'll tell you, those of us who go through them every now and then in Southern California, always, when we hear about it, it's like, glad it's not by me, and I hope that the families where it is aren't terrified and losing their homes. So our thoughts are with those folks. Excuse me. Must be time for a sip of Red Bull, the Blue Edition. Which means there will be a burp coming up shortly. Excuse me. Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's much cooler out today. Let's see. As a matter of fact, we actually had the windows open this morning. It's only 79 degrees here at 4 o'clock. Unbelievable. It's like, why do you get the heat on a holiday weekend that's so oppressive that you can't even go outside? I mean, we'd literally shut all the blinds in our house just to, keep it cooled off a little bit. Hello, Darren Moss. How are you? And yeah, today it's like you could almost not have the air conditioning on, but you'll notice I do have the air conditioning on anyway because these studio lights are just oppressive. Okay, so that's number one. Holiday weekend. Hope everybody had a safe one and a good one. And hello, Make Tat. Welcome to the chat room. So that's item number one. Item number two. Oh, I need to get a prop for this. Be right back. It's coming. Hang in there. Guess what arrived today? Woohoo! The new laptop with Logic. Yeah, baby. I'm so excited. Can barely stand it. I'm so excited. Far more excited about getting Logic than I am about getting the laptop. I don't get that excited about computers. That's the logo that I'm going to put on the t-shirts this year, Peter, so worry not. Yeah, no more sleep for Michael, that's for sure. But I've got a road rally to deal with, and I really didn't get anything done about the road rally over the weekend. Ended up working a lot this weekend, sadly. Pretty much worked all day yesterday. It's too damn hot to go outside. But anyway, I'm going to try really... What the hell was that? Oh, that was the power cord. You can't order the t-shirts yet, but trust me, I will let you know where to get them and when to get them. Hello, Simon Burnham. Welcome. Yeah, I'm so excited. I used the demo, song that was in there and played around with it for about a half an hour, if you can believe that. I actually had to put it away and do some real work. But hello, Joseph Alonso and Mark Reel. Anyway, I was already playing around with the various compressors and EQ, some of the plugins, and just going, holy crap, is this awesome. I can't wait. Hello, Make Tat. I'm new here, so do you guys do music submissions and stuff like that? Yeah, we do. Are you not familiar with Taxi? Because if you're not, you should definitely go to taxi.com. You should click on the big red button in the lower left-hand quadrant of the homepage, get yourself on the email list, and you will get 3 opportunities per day emailed to your box. If you choose to join Taxi, it's $300 a year, $5 per song submission. We've been doing this for 28 years, and we've got thousands of members who have had various levels of success, from making a couple hundred, few $100 a year, up to people making 6-figure incomes. Really depends on how much work you want to put into it, how many hours a day you want to do it, how serious you are, but it works for those who work it. Woo, I should make a bumper sticker. There we go. Write, submit, forget, and repeat. That's a mantra that you will soon have to know. Will I submit my Logic created tracks? Nope. The blue shirt matches my vase. It does, Heidi. I didn't plan it that way. Get the UAD Apollo interface, then you'll have even more plugins. Oh, great. And then I'll call Shirelli and tell him to send me a magic link to all of his plugins for free. Anyway, I'm excited. Just found you today, heard your conversation about how the music industry is changing, and wow, lovely. I'm definitely going to check things out more. Great. Well, you came to the right place. This is an awesome community. Taxi, like I said, has been in business for 28 years. We've got thousands of members all over the world. We do a serious show called Taxi TV every Monday from 4 to 5:30 Los Angeles time, kind of a more structured show. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, it's kind of like the Taxi Lonely Hearts Club band. I started doing these quarantini happy hours, which are much looser, not a particularly well-defined agenda every day. Usually some music education thrown in here, but largely it's a hangout. For those of us who have been quarantined all these months and just want to hang out with other musicians and talk about the industry and talk about music, all that stuff. So there you go. the taxi behind Michael is doing. Take your music career forward. Yeah, notice I've got the hood open today. I had to let the engine cool off over the weekend because it was so damn hot. Yes, I did, Nancy. I did actually play in coffee houses back in 1971 and 72 in central Illinois. I think the one where I played a couple times with Dan Fogelberg were in, I want to say Peoria, which was about a 2-hour drive from where I was at the time. Yeah, we might talk about fishing, just to let you know, because you're new here, that sometimes we do get off track and talk about anything from going fishing to the gophers in my backyard. And basically, it's just a great place to hang out with other like-minded people, build yourself a network, find some collaborators. What kind of material did I play? Neil Young, just about anything off the Harvest album. What else? Some CSN, Eagles, all the stuff that I grew up loving. You know, anything you could play on an acoustic guitar. That's right, Dan Weber. Everybody hit that like button now. Hello, Edmund Red. Sorry you're late. That's okay. It's not like, it's a college level class. All right, so that's that. We've talked about heat. We've talked about the laptop Logic. I want to mention one other thing. I just ordered these this morning. If any of you in the chat or who watch the show later have tinnitus, or tinnitus as my doctor calls it, which I have, which I didn't get from all those years working in the studio. I got it from a really bad double ear infection like 20 years after I was done working in the studio. And the doctor couldn't get me in to see them fast enough, and they said, why don't you just go to urgent care? And I didn't, and I got tinnitus and have had it for, gosh, I don't know, 20, 30 years probably. So I saw an ad somewhere online for this thing called Flare, Flare. Basically, they look a little bit like hearing aids, but I think they're passive. They're not electronic. They don't amplify the sound or anything. But they created these little things which plug in your ear. They just look like a little thing that goes in your ear, both sides. They're $27, really cheap thrill. And it's supposed to eliminate some harmonic distortion that we all hear, even people without tinnitus. These things weren't invented for tinnitus. They were invented to reduce stress by getting rid of the distortion that we hear in normal everyday speech or sounds around us. And when people started buying them to reduce stress, they started getting emails at the company saying, hey, I've had tinnitus and this has greatly reduced it. Shocking, huh? So they make no guarantees or claims. They've done some research. They hired an independent lab that did some research, and they're still checking it out more. But I ordered some. They should be here in about a week. And it's not like you put them in and boom, your tinnitus is gone necessarily. Works for some people. Works for a lot of people apparently, from what I've been reading. Not everybody, and has varying levels of efficacy as to how much. It eliminates the tinnitus. But I'll let you know, for $27, what the hell? Yeah, harmonic distortion is great when mixing. We all love it. Peter Rail, also known as mother-in-law mufflers. Yeah, pillows are good for that too. Never mind. So that's it. Did I play Neil Young songs before he worked with Neil Young, or tell him when he worked with him? I don't think I ever told him. And frankly, it was only like 3 years later that I found myself working with Neil, which was quite shocking to me. Back at the time when I was playing acoustic guitar and playing those I didn't do a lot of coffee house gigs, I don't know, maybe 10 of them in a year or something. I can't remember the guy's name. We would play together. He had blonde hair. Anyway, so that's that. I think I did play. One day Neil would leave a lot of his guitars in the studio overnight. And one day he was a little late to the session, and I opened up his favorite Martin, probably the one you've seen in a million pictures. I believe it's the one that's on the front cover of Comes a Time. And maybe I was playing Old Man, I don't know, but I was playing something and singing in my best Neil Young voice. And he had walked in the control room. I was sitting out in the studio setting up the mic for him for the day, and my assistant was in the control room getting the control room ready, and he opened up a room mic, and I looked up all of a sudden, and I see Neil standing behind my assistant, who was sitting at the console with his finger on the fader opening up the room mic, and Neil just had this he had a Jack Nicholson face. I'm not sure who owned it first. I think Jack Nicholson's older, but Neil has this wry, it's not a stink eye, I can't really explain it, but a wry smile and raised eyebrow thing that he can do that is somewhat reminiscent of Jack Nicholson. And he was sitting in there with his arms crossed, standing behind my assistant, Paul, just looking out at me. And I was so embarrassed, but he thought it was pretty funny, actually. Yeah, there's so much I could tell you guys about my studio antics, but a lot of it is not for publication. I don't want to, there's just stuff that I can't repeat. But like I've mentioned before, I do a really, really funny Neil Young imitation, but I need to be under the influence of probably alcohol to get loose enough to do it. And I've done that for Neil, and he literally fell down laughing. We have to hear your Neil Young voice. I can't do it. I'll crack up now. But I will tell you that virtually every day when he walked in the studio and our eyes would meet as he walked through the door, he'd go, "Oh, hey now." See, that wasn't a very good imitation, but it was always, "Oh, hey now." Oh, man. And yes, I did almost all covers. I don't remember ever doing an original song back in the day. Wasn't a songwriter. Okay, so that's all that. So now let's talk about instrumentals versus instrumental cues. We got an email. My wife was actually working yesterday. It's just so hot. We just didn't want to go outside, and there's only so much TV you can watch, So I was upstairs in the bedroom with my laptop, and she came down to the dining room with her laptop, and she was answering mostly customer service emails, and she got this one, which touches on the subject of instrumentals versus cues, but just touches on it. So this gentleman named Anders Nordstrom from Sweden wrote that I have a question regarding listing number S200-521TN. Was forwarded on that listing, and now they have contacted me, meaning the publisher contacted me and offered me my first contract. Hooray! My first contract is in range. But there are some things I find strange. Was it, and then he mentions the library's name that made the request. And he sent us a link. The company that he was offered the deal from is a publisher that we have been finding a ton of music for the last 2 years, I think, and they're from overseas, and they are distributed globally by Universal Music or Universal Production Music. And he said, "Is that them?" And it was in fact them. And then he says, because in listing they ask for submissions that are 90 seconds long, but in their first email, meaning the publisher's first email to him, they tell me they expect my music to be around 3 minutes and no less than 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So he brought up an interesting point, and it was a mistake on our part, and we've actually uncovered 3 listings. Honestly, we really don't make a lot of mistakes. We work really hard to not make mistakes, and this was a relatively little one. It's kind of a no harm, no foul, but it is going to cost this gentleman and anybody else offered a deal from those 3 listings that had this minor flaw in it, that they're going to have to, if they wrote pieces that are too short that they're going to have to edit them or lengthen them in one way or another. That means he says that means I have to rewrite the track 4 months after I made it. Is that common? They also ask for several alt versions and a stem package. Is the alt versions also common? I don't know if you can answer this or if I should make the question on the forum. Well, Anders, I'm glad you did, because it gives me the opportunity to not only answer this for you, but answer it for everybody. I know a lot of the regulars here know the difference and know this stuff. So pardon me for repeating it, but, there are people that watch these shows that aren't part of the regular crew. So we did, in fact, we run listings for some production music libraries, also known as film and TV music publishers, that they will say, I'll take instrumentals or instrumental cues. So for clarification on that, an instrumental cue is not written like a song. It's the type of music, maybe the best example I can give is the little musical pieces that you probably don't even notice unless you're addicted to them like most of us here, that you would hear in reality shows like my very favorite, The Kardashians. I'm joking. Don't love the show. But I do watch it for the music. Anyway, an instrumental cue is usually somewhere around 90 seconds to maybe 2 minutes long. Some people make them 60 seconds long, but usually 90 seconds to 2 minutes is a pretty good range. Doesn't have to be exactly 90 seconds. Doesn't have to be exactly 2 minutes. It could be 87 seconds. It could be 2 minutes and 4 seconds, just in that range. And an instrumental cue, how it's different from a song is a cue basically has very little intro. We're talking like a couple of bars of intro, maybe 4 bars of intro, or frequently no intro at all. And then it jumps right into the A section, and the A section is somewhat analogous to the chorus of a regular song. It's the red meat, It's the good part. It's the impactful part. So little short intro or no intro, then boom, right into the A section. But typically the A section starts out with very few instruments. Starts out skinny. So it might just be like bass, drums, and a little rhythm guitar figure. It could be piano figure. It could be whatever. Doesn't matter. Depends on the genre will dictate those things. And usually it's like 4 bars or 8 bars of the skinny version. And then another instrument is introduced for another 4 or 8 bars, and then maybe another instrument. So it builds up as it progresses. And then at some point, about halfway through the cue, it'll break back down and go into the skinny version again, and then start building back up, still on the A section again. And then maybe it'll drop down to a B section, which I think is kind of analogous to what a bridge does in a song. And it does that for 4 bars or 8 bars, maybe even 16 bars, depending on the genre and style and that sort of stuff. And then it goes back to that A section again, builds back up, and then with a big finish ends on what is commonly called a buttoned or a stinger ending, which means that it's got it's not faded. So depending on the genre, it could be, if you're doing a big bombastic orchestral piece that would be good for a movie trailer, it would end with a boom, big bang, big definitive exclamatory ending. I always say it's like the exclamation point on the end of a sentence with all caps. The reason is that they can't use a fade. How do you edit a fade? And it brings up the point, which is they rarely use the entire cue. A lot of times they'll take a 90-second cue, and maybe they'll take 2 bars from the intro, and then, boy, I'm glad I got that new computer. My screen just went again. Something is definitely wrong with this one, but that's okay. It's going to become a paperweight in about a week. Anyway, so what was I talking about? The exclamatory ending. So the bigger the type of music, if you were doing something that's new agey, a non-faded ending I would call a buttoned ending. It just ends on the downbeat, usually goes back to the tonic. If it's a rock track, let's say like a bluesy rock thing done with guitars and some distortion and bass and drums, bam, bam, that's a buttoned ending or a stinger. Kind of in my personal vocabulary, I would call any non-faded ending technically is buttoned. And the bigger it is, kind of the more raucous, the more impactful the music is. When it gets up to the point, if it's a genre that requires something big, bombastic, and super exclamatory in the end, that's often referred to as a sting ending or a stinger ending. You could literally take that ending, da-dum, and just cut right there on it and just use that much of the cue. Or you could just go to that B section of the cue and maybe use 2 bars or 4 bars of that and then cut right to the ending. There are all these different ways to move around what are essentially Legos, if you will, musical Legos. And the editors working on the reality shows are the people that lay the music into the scenes. So they determine where it comes in, how the music is edited to go along with the scene, how long the music stays in the scene, and where it gets out of the scene. So if you've got a stinger ending on it, and it's boom, and boom, comes in the next scene, and right on the downbeat of the next scene or the first frame of video is where you would come in with the downbeat of the next cue. So there you go. Now you know every single thing you'll ever need to know about instrumental cues. Now, an instrumental, this is my own personal definition, but it's the one we tend to use as a company because nobody has ever told us a better one. If they do, I will steal it and take credit for it. Anyway, an instrumental is more like a song. And it's usually longer. It's usually 2 to 3, maybe 3.5 minutes long. It's like song length, not as short as a cue. The sections don't change maybe as much as a cue. Maybe they don't, step up as they progress. And by the way, the reason that you do that with adding new tracks as it progresses and then dropping it down. Whoops, the home phone is ringing. Ooh, somebody named Steinberger is calling me. Steinberger still in business? Maybe they're giving me something for free? I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to answer it and then hang up on it so it doesn't go to voicemail. Anyway, what the hell was I talking about? So, for an instrumental, think of a scene in a restaurant where you've got maybe some smooth jazz playing in the background, right? Well, smooth jazz doesn't really need to feel like it's got that forward momentum where layers are being added, subtracted, things like that. It's just smooth jazz, cocktail jazz maybe in the background, played by a piano bar dude or dudette. It could be coming from speakers in the ceiling at the restaurant. It could be in a hotel lobby. It could be elevator music. And those scenes are generally longer because the dialogue in the scene is longer. 2 people having a conversation in an elevator could last more than 40 seconds or 90 seconds or 12 seconds. It might go on for a couple of minutes. So they want length and they don't need kind of that forward momentum building style of instrumental that you would create for an instrumental cue. So that's basically an instrumental. It's kind of like a song's rhythm track, but without the vocal in it. And you may say, well, gee, if I take out the vocal, then I don't have the melody that the vocal would have done. However, if you try to do the melody that the vocal would have done with a piano or a saxophone or a flute or whatever, you're going to find that you end up sounding like 101 strings, doing covers of Beatles songs or something. It sounds a little cheesy to my ear, and I think to other people in the industry, if you drop in a full melody that would replicate what the vocal melody would do. So oftentimes, what composers do is do what I call melody light, which is to take just bits of the melody, like little hints of the melody. Maybe, for every 4 notes of melody, you're only doing 1 in this example. Of course, if you're doing, like a cocktail jazz piece, you might have a piano melody played with the right hand. But anyway, so that's what an instrumental is versus an instrumental cue. Cues are shorter and seem to have more purpose, more forward momentum, and they are designed to be cut up by editors. Speaking of which, I forgot to mention the fact that cues invariably have what are called edit points. An edit point could be really obvious. It could be where you've got a half note rest or a whole note rest between sections. It could be no rest at all. In other words, don't leave a gap, but it's got to have something big to cut on. For instance, a violin, if you were doing a solo cello instrumental cue, that might be a little hard to cut on because probably somewhat legato, doesn't have a lot of obvious places to cut. An experienced editor or music editor in particular could cut it, but it's not that easy. And you got to remember, video editors aren't generally musicians, although I would say half to 3/4 of them are somewhat musical. And so they do understand things like measures or downbeats and where to cut. But an edit point for a non-musician would be something like a kick drum beat, like the one of a 4/4, just cut it on the first kick drum of that phrase. It could be hand claps, but it's usually at the beginning or the end of sections or phrases or measures. So that's what's called an edit point. So you want to make them kind of obvious. If you're doing big bombastic orchestral pieces that are going to be used in movie trailers, the edit points often can be something that's like a hole made out of a whole note rest. If it's a little indie folk pop thing, you probably wouldn't build that kind of edit point into it. You would just cut it on a drum beat or something. So there you go. I think I explained all that. So, I want to address Anders' question. So first of all, my apology, Anders. There were 3 listings that went out for that company that normally when a company says they're looking for instrumentals or instrumental cues, we would actually say in the listing, if you're submitting cues, make them about 90 seconds-ish. And if you're doing instrumentals, make them longer. In this case, the person who wrote those 3 listings and had been writing all of our listings for about 4 years, he's no longer with the company. And Bree is now writing listings and doing a really, really good job of it, I might add. He forgot to put in that second sentence. It says, if you're submitting, he got the first part in there about making, your cues about 90 seconds long. Didn't include the second sentence, which said, and if you're submitting instrumentals, make them about 2 to 3, 3.5 long. So normally that company that got Anders' music is looking for either or. In this case, the genre was for sci-fi investigative tension instrumentals with a Middle Eastern flair. So probably that kind of music would be used in TV dramas or maybe feature films that are produced somewhere in the Middle East that are going to be about COVID, and have lab scenes where 2 scientists are looking through a microscope and they're having a conversation as they're looking at the coronavirus growing and mutating and jumping out of the microscope, grabbing him by the neck and killing him. So he probably wanted longer versions because the scenes would be longer and have dialogue in them. It wouldn't be something that might typically be used in, I don't know, maybe they're doing COVID versions of the Kardashians where they're looking through microscopes. I don't know. So my apologies that we didn't catch that for 3 of the listings that went out, and that's 3 out of 1,200 a year. So we blew it on those 3. I will take ownership of that. The good news is, yes, you just edit yours, make it longer, and now if you weren't already aware of the difference between an instrumental cue and an instrumental, now you are. Also, you mentioned in your email that, they also asked for several alt versions and a stem package. Is that common? It's extremely common. The reason that they want the, stems or alt mixes, an alt mix could be as simple as, um, well, if you were doing a song, just muting the vocal would be an alt mix. If you're creating stems, you might have stems of just the rhythm section or stems of just the drums. If it's a song with vocals, you might actually do stems, which is just a submix, really, of the vocal part, because maybe they work a cappella. Or maybe that piece of music might get used in a TV commercial where they've got to bring the vocals in and out to accommodate the voiceover that's usually in the center of the commercial. So they don't want to remix the multi-track. That's beyond their capability. But they do want versions that they can edit between. Let's use a song, for example, and let's say it starts out with, I was going to sing a McDonald's commercial, but I can't because I'll get hit with a copyright thing. But, Mary had a little lamb, blah, 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 fleece as white as snow. And then, boom, they cut to the instrumental version, that alt mix, where the vocal would normally continue, and now there's no vocal, so the voiceover announcer could do his thing. And then they cut back to the version with the vocal for Its Fleece Was White as Snow for the ending of the commercial, creating what's called in the industry a donut, which is a thing with a hole in the middle for the voiceover announcer. So many libraries, it's very common, ask for those things. I can't say that all do, but many do. And it's actually a really good thing for you. It's a pain in the butt to create those extra things, but you should get into the routine of doing that every single time that you mix. And don't start adjusting your levels. Like when you bring certain instruments out to create a stem of just, let's say, drums, bass, and guitar, or just drums, or whatever, you're going to see your mix bus levels be lower. Don't compensate by bringing the faders up, because then you will have tracks that will be like up here and down there. So when they go to edit, they would have to do level matching, which is too much work, and they'll go, I'll just use somebody else's track. So always just use the mute button. Don't use the faders. Never adjust the levels when you're doing any sort of alt mix or breaking things out into subgroups or stems. So, did I cover it all? I think I did. You guys have any suggestions on anything else I might have added? Is the alt mix the same as a stem, or is there a definitive difference? There is a difference, but it's hard to explain. I'm trying to think. Stems are alt mixes, but alt mixes aren't necessarily stems. An alt mix would be dropping out, doing a mix with no piano. Okay, so let's say you've got bass, drums, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, and piano. So an alt mix would be dropping out the piano. That's an alternate mix, right? Stems might just be just the guitars. Nothing but guitars. Taking out the bass, the drums, and the pianos, just leaving the acoustic guitar and the electric guitar. And you're thinking, well, that would be weird, because there would be sections maybe where there's nothing but air. That's okay, because sometimes they need to edit that stuff. An alt mix could just be muting the drums. Man, why is it every day when I'm in the middle of the show, people are calling? I don't want to hang up on that one. We actually have a friend who's in hospice right now, and I don't know that number. I hope it's not bad news. Stems are always only one instrument. I don't know that I would use the word always for that. Probably, oftentimes, but not necessarily. Stems are components. You know what? I guess that's one good way to describe it is it's like taking the 24 tracks that are on a piece of 24 track tape. Remember tape? And just running a particular instrument from top to bottom. But there might be times where you're creating stems that, stems could be the rhythm section, could be bass and drums. So I don't know. And you know what? Frankly, I'm a little confused on the point because different editors that I know refer to different things in different ways. They're not musicians. They're not mix engineers. They're not producers. So, yeah, you're generally right about that, Pierre, but sometimes you got to take what they say in context. That will give you the definitive answer. A group of similar instruments. There you go. Right. So it's not necessarily just one thing, but guitar stem could be the acoustic guitar and the electric guitar from top to bottom with nothing else. Another stem might be just drums. Another stem might be bass and drums. If the bass were really important, like My Sharona, where the bass part and the drums are so important that you could stem that out. Okay, so there you go. That you just learned about probably a semester's worth of stuff that they might not even teach you in college. So save your money and go to Taxi University every day here for free at 4 o'clock, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And don't forget, on Monday, we actually have episodes that are much more like what you just heard for 20 minutes than talking about fishing, gophers, and the tomatoes I'm currently growing in my backyard. All right. Edutainment. I like that word. I don't think I've ever heard that. Yeah, Dan Weber just reconfirmed what I said about everything should be the same level as your master. So remember, never adjust levels. When you're dropping stuff out to create stems or alt mixes, never, ever, ever adjust. Don't touch any of the faders on your individual tracks, and don't touch the mix bus or the master fader. Even if it looks like the levels are really low, they're all relative and they need to be identical so that an editor can take a section from there, and a section from there, put them all together, and they will all be level matched. Karen Brasher, I have the My Sharona guitar played by Doug Feiger. You actually have the actual guitar? That's cool. You know what we have? We have the bass player. Prescott Niles has been a Taxi screener for about 20 years. Very popular at our convention every year. All right. So there you go. What do you guys want to talk about? We've got 16 minutes left, and I've got no gophers, although I will mention, I swear the gophers in my yard actually know what time it is. I'm pretty sure they don't have digital clocks down in their little tunnels, but it's ridiculous. I'll go outside usually like 15 minutes before the show. Once I've got all my tech set up and my lighting and my makeup is good, the hair is coiffed perfectly, I will go outside and just take in a little fresh air just because I can. And when I go out there, I look to see if there are any new gopher holes in the yard, and they're not. And when the show is over, I go out there, and there are. So clearly the gophers know when I am unavailable to come out there and relocate them. Question from Edmund. Any road rally updates? No. Other than I didn't work on. I was supposed to do a lot of road rally work this weekend, and I just didn't. I was lazy. It was a holiday weekend, and I did not. And sadly, yes, we have somebody that we're very, very close with who is currently losing her battle with cancer, and she is in hospice. So Deb and I spent a lot of the weekend thinking about her and visiting with her, and so I just didn't get around to the road rally stuff. But what I am working on now, and what I should have completed this weekend, is laying out the schedule from a tech perspective for the tech company, so they know how long each panel will be. Are we going to have commercials in the panel? Is there going to be like a 30-minute clinic, a sponsored clinic after? They need to know all the ins and outs and anything they might encounter. Thank you, everybody. It is very sad. Andre wants to know, is there a maximum amount of edit points in a track? How many is too much on a 2-minute track? Got to go with your gut. If you overdo it, it'll be obvious. I would say probably better to come up a little light than come up too heavy. If it's too heavy, it's not going to sound musical anymore. Yeah, the lady's name is Rosie, and we met Rosie 23 years ago when our daughter Hannah was born, and my wife Deb was still working full-time, and she interviewed about 25 different nannies to take care of Hannah, and it was Deb's first kid, and she was, had the first mom syndrome. And finally, on the 25th interview, we met Rosie, and Rosie we called her Rosie Poppins. She was the perfect nanny. And here we are almost 24 years later, and she's like family to us. So she was Hannah's nanny for about 3 years. Then Gabriella was born, and she was the nanny for both of them for a short period of time. And then, thank God, Taxi started doing well enough that I was able to say, Deb, you can now live your dream and be a stay-at-home mom. So Rosie then became, it's funny, we always say she kind of raised all of us. I think she taught us some good parenting skills. She was an amazing cook. She makes the world's best chili rellenos. And boy, what a treat it was to come home from work every night and have the house spotlessly clean, a happy baby, and chili rellenos waiting for us when we walked through the door. But anyway, so we've remained very close with Rosie all these years. And sadly, about 3 years ago, she had cancer south of the border that she fought a valiant battle, but it's finally just riddled her whole body. And it's funny, when we spent some hours with her, Deb was there, I think on Friday, and then I went back with her on Sunday. So I don't know, in total, maybe 5 or 6 hours. And Rosie, other than dealing with a lot of pain, she's in great spirits, totally mentally 100%, which is unbelievable because they've got her on Oxycontin, gabapentin, fentanyl, and one other painkiller. All 4 of them at once, enough to kill anybody. And morphine. And she was, in great spirits. And we got her on the phone with a live video chat with our daughters from Israel. There were a lot of tears, but happy tears. Anyway, so, we're sadly waiting for that call that we know is going to come. Hopefully tomorrow we can go over and visit with her some more. But yeah, other than losing a bunch of weight and being in pain, she looks and sounds great. Thank you. So that's it. Now we've got 11 minutes left. Any questions? I'm so talked out. Thank you, Brad. Thank you all. It's tough. Rosie's a very special woman, very special to us. Have I heard about the new PRO? Yes. Are you talking about the one? I think it was started by, what's his name? The Eagles manager, right? good time for me to prod you on the Discord thing. You know what? I keep writing it down on my Taxi TV show notes page, and then they're in a big pile over there. I am making a note. Let's see. Tomorrow is Wednesday, September 9th. Check out Discord for Rally. All right, that's my 7:30 in the morning task tomorrow. Excuse me, I will check it out while I am having my first cup of coffee. Hopefully my only cup of coffee. Yeah, why can I not think of his name? Let's find out. Who is the manager of the Eagles? Irving Azoff, yes. I think it was Don Henley that so eloquently said, he may be the devil, but he's our devil. Irving Azoff is probably the most famous, most powerful, and arguably the most successful talent manager in the history of the music industry. Certainly, in the last 30 years, let's say 40 years. I can't even. Let's find out who has Irving managed. Who are the acts that Irving Azoff has managed?
According to Variety, he's currently co-running or overseeing 5 companies, full stop management, with a roster including the Eagles, Bon Jovi and rapper Travis Scott, a sprawling live entertainment firm, Oakview Group,
wow.
which includes
So currently Bon Jovi, rapper Travis Scott, the Eagles. It's got 5 different companies. Wow. Anyway, he's a big deal. If you've ever watched the documentary, which if you haven't, you really need to watch it, The History of the Eagles, Part 1, or is it Part 1 and Part 2? Irving is in there. He's awesome. If I have a regret in the music industry, it's that I didn't get a job at some point in my career working for Irving Azoff. I hear he's a handful. He doesn't suffer fools gladly, and he's very demanding, but you would expect that. But man, what I wouldn't give to just keep my mouth shut, my ears and eyes open, and learn from a guy like that. Darren Moss, what do you think you'll do with Logic Pro? Is there a grand plan? No, there really isn't a grand plan other than I just love the studio. You guys know that. It's my favorite thing. And while I am very well versed in the world of analog and, the world of SSL and Neve consoles and 24-track tape machines and microphones and wires and live rooms and recording full bands and mixing records, all that stuff, I've never jumped into working with a digital audio workstation. So I largely because of you guys and other Taxi members that I'm around all the time, I'm so envious when I hear people talking about how great plugins are and hearing Pearson talk about how great the drums are in Logic. I want to play with it. And apply the engineering and production skills that I developed back in the day. And who knows what I'll do with it. Do I have any desire to write and produce my own stuff? Not really. Might I, make some instrumental music just for fun? Yeah. I mean, really what I'm looking forward to is understanding the workflow and developing the muscle memory to use it effectively. What I do with it after that, who knows? I mean, it is my dream someday, if I ever get to retire, to go back to making records again, but only with acts that I really, really want to work with, acts that I know are awesome people. I don't want to be up till 4 o'clock in the morning with a room full of people wired on cocaine. Not my dream gig anymore. But, something I would love to do would be like 3 or 4 times a year is put together friends of mine that are A-list players and go work in a really awesome studio and just do full band live stuff with a room full of great musicians. I don't want to pitch it afterwards. I don't want to worry about picking the best song. I just love the act of recording and producing great tracks. Can the acts be Taxi members? They could. They got to be in Los Angeles. You can take the SSL far from the guy, but you can't take the SSL out of the guy. There you go. Submit my stuff anonymously to Taxi and see what happens. I know what would happen. And I don't even want to do that as like a practical joke on my staff or in any way, shape, or form, because I would never want anybody to misconstrue it and go, oh, the owner of Taxi is submitting his own stuff. Even though we might know it was done for fun, I will never give anybody an open door to say that. Interview Irving Azoff for the road rally. I'm not sure he would be the right type of person. I mean, he operates at such a high level that, frankly, our members, the vast majority of our members, are not at that level. That the advice he would give, could we ask him, so if you were a band just starting out, what would you do to get noticed? He's just going to roll his eyes at me for that. It's a valid question, but it's not really a great question for him. I'm not going to shoot that figurative bullet on a guy like that. I would love to interview him in general. What, Stephen Pressfield is chopped liver? Teaching you guys how to use Logic, I don't think I will be caught up to you guys for a long, long time. Katie Dwyer, the next road rally is going to be virtual. It's got to be virtual. We're not allowed to have large gatherings in Los Angeles, so we just recently got out of our contract with the hotel. We will be doing a really good virtual Taxi road rally starting on November 6th, 7th, and 8th. 3 straight days of at least 8 hours a day of the kind of stuff that we do on stage. We're a little bit famous, if I can be momentarily immodest, for doing the best panels in the industry, because every question I ask is, I always say to myself right before I start every panel, I have like a little momentary moment of prayer, if you will, where I say, okay, just ask the questions that the people sitting behind me in the audience would ask if they had the microphone in their hand. So you get a lot of really actionable stuff that you can make a note, go home and do it and get results, versus a lot of the other conventions out there are like, wow, man, that's awesome that you're a rock star. What's it like to fly on a private jet? I care because I really like private jets. I'm a little infatuated with them. Not that I have one or will have one anytime soon, but I do fly remote control planes, although I haven't done that in a couple of years, and I love anything that flies. So yes, would I like to go on a private jet? Sure, I would. Do I really care about somebody famous? The rigors of touring, it's so hard. It's like the other night on tour, my personal chef made me sushi and the fish was a little bit fishy. I don't care. But yeah, we're going to have an awesome virtual road rally that will be covering things like, what are music libraries about, how to make better instrumentals and instrumental cues, like a little more elongated version than I did today, making music for advertising, what kind of things cause the screeners to say, you're not good enough to forward. What are some common mistakes that Taxi members make? It looks like we're going to be able to do listening panels where I have 3, 4, 5 people that I would have on a panel at the road rally that will listen to music from Taxi members and talk about, is it good enough that it could be used, or is it not? And if not, what could be fixed to make it better? All that stuff. We will have people that will be talking about the business side of the business, which is often far too overlooked. So all kinds of stuff. Will there be a special archive for that virtual road rally? Yes. The show will be live every day, and we will absolutely archive it, but only Taxi members with the private link and the guests of those Taxi members, you get one guest per member, will be allowed to have that link. Wind chimes. Hey, Lori says, news you can use. There you go. 6pence None the Richer. Not technically discovered by Taxi, but what happened was they were signed. They're kind of a Christian band, and they weren't really taking off in the secular market. They weren't taking it off at all. They were signed to a little indie label that I believe might have been a Christian label in Nashville, and they were getting no traction anywhere. And their A&R person actually reached out to us and said, hey, I heard you guys are pretty good at getting stuff in film and TV. We're not having any success getting any of their songs picked up at radio. Could you guys see what you can do about getting us some film and TV placements? So they became members. I want to say we got whatever song was the single. What's it called? Miss You? Whatever it was called. Landed in an episode of Dawson's Creek, and the phones at the network just, I think it was the CW, just blew up. Everybody wanted to know who that band was, where they could get that song, and that was the career launching moment for that act. So did we get a platinum? Kiss Me. There you go. We got a platinum record for that album. It's hanging up in our office as we speak. Better begin to train my bladder for those 3 days. I actually have a plan for eating and peeing, which is we're going to have some, like I said, some half-hour like infomercials or gear clinics that will be put on by sponsors in between some of the panels. So that'll, for all you gearheads out there, which is pretty much most of us, we'll get some great gear demos. That's we're just going to hit the play button because those will be pre-records, and that's when I get to go eat and pee. So there you go. Everybody smash the like button. Give us a thumbs up. Is Carl Lewis still working at Taxi? He's an awesome guy. No, Carl, I mean, he's still part of the family, and technically we could bring him into screen stuff, but his teaching career at Musicians Institute is his full-time gig. And if I called him and said, Carl, we need you, we're in a pinch and we need your type of ears for a particular thing, he would absolutely do it. So there you go. Give us likes. If for those of you who are new to the chat today, if you are not a subscriber to the channel, please hit subscribe. And I will be back here tomorrow to spend even more time with you guys for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. And thank you again, Anders Nordstrom, for sending that email, which allowed me to elaborate on all that good stuff. Thank you for hanging out. It was fun. See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.